Hello, hello, everyone. Happy New Year. This is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn. Can you guys see and hear me okay? Please let me know in the chat. Yes, yes, perfect. How is everybody's New Year? Anybody played any chess tournaments lately? Any good results you can share with us? Yes, good. Good rating gain. Yep. Not good results. Okay, well, you can improve this year, hopefully. Okay, so some not good results, some so-so. Okay, not bad, guys. So let's give maybe another minute for everyone to slowly trickle in here. And as you already see, we're going to be talking a little bit about endgames today. I'm going to be mostly focusing on Rook and Pawn endgames that I haven't myself experienced recently. And I played in a local chess tournament recently, and out of 4 games, I had 3 Rook and Pawn endgames just in one tournament. How many of you guys have had interest in Rook and Pawn endgames yourself recently? Okay, some of you had. Good. I somehow get lucky. Well, sometimes you need a little bit of luck. Yeah, tons of them. So this is actually the topic of today. We're going to be focusing more about the practical element of the Rook and Pawn endgames. And obviously, there's lots and lots of material out there. You can watch videos. You can read the Dvoretsky endgame manual for the theoretical Rook and Pawn endgames. But we're going to be talking about practical Rook and Pawn endgames. I'm going to be sharing with you my own recent experiences, as well as some, I'm going to choose one of the most top level guys, Nepomniachtchi against Carlsen, not this very past World Blitz and Rapid event, but just before that. So even the top guys make pretty obvious endgame mistakes in Rook and Pawn endgames. Okay, so again, for those of you who are just joining us, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn. Welcome, and we'll be talking about endgames, specifically Rook and Pawn endgames. All right, so let me share with you this game. It starts with 2 rooks and 2 bishops, and this is, again, my own game against a local player. So let me just go back 1 move to see how it began. So clearly, I have 2 against 1 over here. My goal in this endgame is to trade and maybe pair of bishops if I can. And I want to use the power of my rooks. Right now, you see, my rooks are, okay, I can enter the d1 square, but d2 is really where I want to enter. But notice what I do here. First, I insert this check to weaken up my opponent's king. And after g3, I play bishop to d2. Okay, so far so good. This is the position that I aimed for. You just lost to this guy. Oh no, sorry to hear about that. Bishop takes d2. Yes, it is absolutely forced. He has to take, right? And now we enter very instructive moment. It's not quite Rook and Pawn endgame yet, but don't worry, we'll get there. My opponent obviously doesn't want to take on d2. Why? Who can explain to me why take it on d2 is not recommended in this position? Again, typically I ask people to answer any specific questions in the chat. For this one, it's you can do either direct message or public. It doesn't matter. This is a pretty easy one, but direct message is what typically I expect. Yes, so most of you get it. You can't try to hold this end game with the king cut off from the game, right? Playing with such a cut-off king in this end game is absolutely terrible for white, right? Black can just do whatever he wants. I can start going after the pawn with rook a2, or I can slowly play for b5 maybe a5, and get my king going. And there's absolutely nothing white can do against this plan because his king is cut off. And I control the only open file. So we know that activity in the endgame is a must. So therefore, okay, I have to keep an eye on activity here for white. If I want to convert this extra pawn cleanly, I have to be careful as well. My opponent obviously plays king g2. So now this is very big dilemma. I'd like you to calculate a forced sequence starting with rook takes f2 check, king takes f2, rook d2 check, king e3, and rook a2. Because that was my initial idea during the game to enter that position. But I started hesitating. What will you do in my place? Again, let me know in the chat. Will you take the rook and play rook d2, rook a2? And if not, well, what's your alternative? Okay, so why don't you take a couple of minutes at least here, because it's not that trivial. At least it wasn't trivial for me during the game. And how would you approach this position? Okay, so again, it's my turn. I'm black, and I do have an option to go after the a3 pawn. So don't just give me one concept here, give me actually concrete lines. So either pro taking on f2 and going after the pawn, or against, and give me some concrete lines. Okay. Okay, so I see already somebody is calculating accurately. Good. But in that case, Austin, black will have 2 extra pawns, right? Are you willing to play that position with 2 extra pawns? Okay, Alice, not bad calculation. Visha, and then, okay, but be careful. There's some tricks there at the end. So it looks like people are not quite so basically we have like people divided. Some people are not quite sure. They're worried that white's getting enough counterplay. Some people are more or less okay going after it. So we have like a 50-50 split for now. So let's give people some more time to calculate this. Okay, for the half of the people who don't want to take on f2, why don't you start thinking about what it would be your alternative plan if you don't want to take on f2? And for the other half who really want to make it work, really give me an accurate answer. So I'll give you maybe 1 more minute to think about it. Oh, by the way, there's no right or wrong answer on this one. Black does win with rook takes f2 with accurate play, and also if black doesn't take on f2. But again, the theme here is practical rook and pawn endgames. That's again what I want to kind of emphasize here. So you really need to think about, are you able to execute all of these key ideas under pressure? Okay, so the key is practical. All right, so now let's start calculating. So let me share with you my thought process and see if your ideas are similar to mine. So initially I was like very excited to go into this position because I calculated this check. And after this, I saw that, well, the king is on the way of the rook. The a pawn is about to fall and it's over. Obviously, I stopped my calculation a little bit too early when I went for this line from bishop f4 check. So all the way here, right? When I played bishop f4 check, this is what I kind of generally had in mind. g3, nice force in sequence. King g2, I take, I ended up playing b5, by the way, but let me again talk through my thought process. And then when I got to this position in my calculation later, once we got closer, I realized White has this amazing idea, king d4. And now I'm like, whoa, this is dangerous. The king is getting too active, and if I play logical move b5, rook e3, and the king is getting here. Now, it's the reversal of the roles. Remember how we said, don't get the king cut on g1? Well, now my king is getting cut off. His king is a monster on d4. This is not good, guys. As a matter of fact, b5 is a terrible move. After b5, you can't win. But for those who are still aware of the topic, practical rook and pawn endgames, there is one move that wins here. Actually, technically two moves that win here, but it's the same concept. And nobody mentioned that idea in the chat, unless I missed it. Maybe somebody missed this idea. The idea is bishop d5. Now, technically, you can play bishop b3, and after king c3, then you can play bishop d5. Oh, by the way, some of you actually mentioned rook takes pawn here. Uh-oh. What's wrong with this move? Right? We can just attack these guys. King here. So you got to be careful. So bishop d5 does win. But of course, more accurate, why not? Why bishop b3 if we're going to play bishop b5 right away? So this is a rook and pawn endgame that I didn't even reach to be honest, in my calculation, but I had to evaluate that you have to have some skills to evaluate this position after bishop takes, check, this and this. So what's your eval here? I think it's an easy win, but again, the key here is I don't think this rook can get into AA. The key is if the rook can get active, then it's not easy. Let me just show you one possible scenario. Now, if you said just walk the king over and you convert, that's good enough, right? This is also a pretty good idea. H5, king g7, and if h4, f6. And sooner or later, we're just going to activate our king this way. Yeah, easy win. So multiple plans here. But I did not see this idea, bishop d5. Now, if they don't take on d5, let's say they play rook e3 anyways, then this rook and pawn endgame is quite easily winning. We can do this and activate our rook. The rook can get active via check here or rook c5. But I think in a practical sense, I still made the right decision. Obviously, if I'm a calculating machine, I can see all that, but I am not. We're only human, right? So what kind of practical decision after king g2 did I make here? Let's say you have no time on the clock. You don't have time to calculate all that and see bishop d5. What else can black do, guys? Well, you used to think that rook with extra pawn, it is not quite a dead draw. It's drawish if the rook is active for your opponent, right? So if your opponent has an active rook, it is drawish. So a really good move here is what a lot of people are pointing. Not quite king f8, king e7. It's a little slow, in my opinion. I need to get my pawns going. b6, a7 pawns are not quite. I played b5. This is a common endgame concept. You protect a piece. You also fix a pawn. Generally speaking, if I can get this going really fast, that's also one possible. I don't even need my king, right? Now I give my opponent a decision. What do you do next? So my whole concept in this game from now on is Zugzwang. That's a very powerful topic in the end game. I hope everybody, well, you're all strong. Everybody knows that word, right? It's a German word where you don't have a useful move. So Zugzwang. So here, white is sort of stuck. You may wonder, well, what do you mean white is stuck? Well, this pawn on a3 is kind of stuck. This trade we already discussed is only going to improve my position. It's going to worsen his king. So he decides to play rook to c1. Kind of a waiting move. Also, the rook may go to c3 if you need to protect that pawn. Now, I have to be careful. If I play a move a6 or a5, he's got this a4 idea. So I really like my next move, guys. I played rook 2 to d4. Very unusual. It seems like I admit my mistake, right? First, I invade the second rank, then I say, I changed my mind, I just go back. But this is actually a very nice idea. By the way, this idea also works. It's the same concept. Yeah, this also works. I'll explain to you why I use this rook from d2, because I wanted to activate this rook here and here and take the pawn. Okay, so this is very instructive moment. Okay, so far so good. Again, for those who are joining us late, we're talking about practical endgames. We're going to be talking mostly about practical rook and pawn endgames. For now, though, we still have 2 rooks and 2 bishops. My opponent is totally stuck. If he tries to get open, well, I can play b4 and keep running with b3, or I can take on a4. He decides to play g4. I think I understood his idea during the game. He wants to activate the king. Well, does that change my plan? Not really. I played a5 first to improve my structure. He played rook b1. He probably already realizes that he doesn't want to allow that pawn to get going. So he played here. And now I execute my plan with rook c8, king here, rook c5, king f4. Okay, so we can say the first stage of black's plan is complete. I've activated my pawns on the king, on the queen side. I've activated my rooks. How do I make progress? Anybody? How does black make progress? Okay, you guys are thinking the right direction. G5 is a move that you have to be very careful about, right? Because you give your opponent so much counterplay. So be careful about moving the pawn to G5. The king can even take and go to F6 or H6. There's also king E3 ideas and F4. So G5 is not the move I want to commit to. H6 is easily met with H4. So H6 doesn't automatically accomplish my plan. Okay, so first you may have noticed the little pin, right? With this terrible bishop. This is probably white's best piece, to be honest. Yeah, I didn't want to put the bishop there. It's quite loose. It allows king, rook d1, king e3 ideas. I played bishop d5. Very simple idea. Now I want to get to winning rook and pawn endgame at some point. But guess what? I keep it sort of this pressure on my own time. I get to take on e4 at my pace. So of course he plays rook e2. Now another move that paralyzes my opponent. This rook is paralyzed protecting the b pawn. This rook can easily be paralyzed by protecting the a3 pawn with rook a4. He played rook e3. Let me just go back a move. How to make progress for black? Well, first move is quite obvious. I played h6, just a good useful move. He's going to play h4. Now the big question for everyone is what's next? Right? So I've accomplished stage 2 of my plan. Total paralysis. His king can't penetrate on g5. Who is left in the game? One of the most important pieces in the endgame. Who is the most important piece in the endgame, guys? The king. Yes, good job. The king. Well, how do you activate the king? So why don't you take a moment here? Well, for those who said king g7, g5 doesn't really activate the king, right? If you want to play king g7, f6, for instance. Yes, there's really only one way to do it, right? Run to f8. And this is yet another type of zugzwang where white can't really do anything. All I'm bringing is bringing the king to c6. I will free the rook. right? Then I can play rook c4 or b4 or do whatever I want with the king supporting my pawn. And this is the winning plan. This is the last stage of my plan. So I go, he kind of waits. Now he realized that waiting is not going to help. Last ditch effort to go into this rook and pawn endgame with doubles and just move the king out of the way. Okay, now just precise calculation is required. I was pretty confident that my king is quite safe from checks. The game is over. One intermezzo check, who cares? Takes here, collect. And now another, of course, like every move wins here, but I really like the practical aspect to sort of seal the victory without allowing any counterplay. Just to avoid having two rooks to deal with on the board. Yes, very classy practical move, just to trade off one of the rooks. I don't even care f7. At this point, I have plenty of pawns. And this is already game over. He could have resigned, but he just played on inertia. And after this, he resigned. Too many pawns. So notice that this win, I didn't have to calculate, right, guys? All I had to do is use the concept of paralysis. And this is a very important concept as we're going to be talking about more and more positions. Paralysis, where your opponent can't really do anything active. And eventually they get into Zugzwang-like stage where every move is just game over. All right. So let's focus on the next example. So next example, also from a local tournament. I'm white. I'm going to flip the board. Yet another rook and pawn endgame. And this is against another local hero, Charlie. And let's see, what is your eval of this endgame, guys? So white to play. This is move 36, so both players are in time pressure. Black's king is cut off. What do you think the eval is? Oh, yeah, he's a hero because he beat Grandmaster Alexander Ivanov. .9, mate in 40. Some wild evals here. Oh, Ivanov flagged up a piece. Oh, he was winning. Interesting. Anyway, let's focus. Let's focus, guys. What is the objective eval and what's the practical eval? Maybe let's do this, kind of break it into two types of evals. Objective eval and practical eval. Okay, objective 0, 0, 0, 0, practical +1. I like that. Wow, -1. You think black's better? Oh, interesting. Okay, not bad. So basically, you guys are getting to this to the core correctly, that objectively white is not winning in this endgame. Simply just having the king cut off on the 7th rank is not quite enough to win the game. You need more than that to win this position, okay? Now, practically, if I can activate my king, imagine my king gets in here. Bad things will happen. I may just start taking over and win on that side of the board. Notice how powerful my rook is on a7. It cuts the king off. It stops these two pawns from moving against one pawn. White has excellent practical winning chances, right? But of course, objectively, it is a draw. So for a while, my opponent was defending quite well. So first, I played king g2. Obviously, my plan is to activate my king. King f8, king g3, rook f6, f4, he took, and now he plays inexplicable move, rook to b6. Hard to explain a move like that. Maybe he was gonna try to get the pawn going. This just loses this idea. right? So first, let me show you how the game finished, then we'll come back to this moment. Trade before king g5. This is game over. Why? Because he's not getting anywhere with this pawn. This pawn is not going anywhere. This rook is too passive, and his king is quite weak. These two are the worst pieces here on the board. So the lesson is passive defense led black to losing this game. The rest is easy after this. He had to move the rook b7. I ended up winning the pawn, right? Then I played here, and now a4, classy move, right? Just fixing everything here. And okay, this is just game over. I won easily. Something like this. He ended up moving the rook, giving up the a pawn. Of course, it's an easy one. Anyways, that's too obvious. Let me go back to the critical moment. So why play rook b6? He should have taken, right? And now ask himself a question. What is white's idea? Can you guys figure out what is white's idea here? Really, there's only one concept. Yes. So my idea is to activate my king. If I can get the king to g5 or e5, it's good enough. Well, if I go here, the rook is already doing a great job hitting my pawn. So he can just kind of chill with king g8. I can't make progress, right? Because I got to activate my king, but to activate the king, I will have to lose the pawn. That's not great. And now, how am I going to win this game? I don't know, rook c4, rook a4 probably is the easiest, right? Yeah, how am I going to win this game now? Okay, so the other option is to go the other route, or king here. He just stops me. Easy draw, right? So all he had to do is ask himself one question. How does white make progress? The answer is obvious. Okay, let's move on to another endgame. Funny enough, same exact tournament. I am black. Let me flip the board against a 2200 master. And for a while, my opponent defended really well here. So first question for everyone is, what should be white's plan? Okay, what is white's plan? Resign. Well, a little early to resign. The correct plan is forget about the pawn. You need the open file. You need the rook on the 7th rank. If this is not obvious, then you guys have to work on your endgame skills. Okay, so if you see a move like this from your opponent, they really need to work on their endgame skills. Okay, because the deep pawn is not really going to help you. Right? I have several winning plans. This one is probably the easiest. Just go and take it. Or I can maybe try to be clever and go rook c8, and if rook d2, maybe e5. So this is kind of a clever idea to win the file. My idea may be rook c2, and if you play, I don't know, rook d2 or something, maybe I can have e5. Because you can't take with the rook because of the back rank mate. So, anyways, rook c1 is what autopilot move. Most top players will not even think twice about defending that pawn. Interesting moment here. Surprisingly, already a tough decision for black. And I think I made the wrong decision, but honestly, it's not obvious. So in the game, I doubled. And my idea was to meet rook here with an active defense. This is an active defense because I am defending and attacking at the same time. Obviously, I'm still attacking here. So these two are targets. But is it actually happened in the game? I don't think I had real winning chances with accurate defense. My opponent blundered, but that's for another, that had nothing to do with the defensive mechanism. Now, objectively, I think taking the pawn is better because after rook c7, rook here, he doubles. It looks like I'm playing very passively. This is absolutely terrible, Rook. But look what I did. Well, what I should have done. Now I have this intermezzo, a little back rank checkmate, obviously G3, and then I come back. So this sort of concept of driving the enemy rook from the 7th rank is very important. And already I can look up to brighter ideas. If I get this king activated, I can start making serious progress. But after h4, you have to be brave enough to do the following idea. Okay, guys, let's focus on the lesson. What is the brave idea? Not king h6, rook h8 mate, of course, but there's a brave idea that black has that I did not see in advance, but I think it's very powerful. Yes, it's g5. This is the brave idea. Now, if he goes here, I think he may get cut off, and this pawn is going to get lost. So, of course, he should take, and after this, e5, I think, gives me excellent winning chances. Because the funny thing is his king can't easily cross this line, right? Look what happens. There's going to be a rook check, and I can pick up that pawn. So big surprise, I think, even though it's equal pawns, I think white's in big trouble. Maybe white can hold with only moves, but I don't believe in this. So that was quite an advanced concept. First, you put the rook on a passive square, then you use the tempo to come to the 7th rank, and only then give your opponent a chance to sort of cut your king off and then sack the pawn and free the king. Very complicated concept. The way that I played, I think, is at least practically made sense. I played here. He did this, I did this. Now he correctly plays b4. I, of course, take the pawn. I was actually quite happy with the rook here because he can't play h4. Obviously, I can take it. But he simply doubles. I play g5. So now my idea is I can run h3 and now rook here because I can't move the king. The problem is this rook is such an annoying piece. My pawns are real targets. And my active rook on b5 is not very active. If rook endgames still are complicated, can we extend the saying to all endgames are drawn within reason? Well, let's not compare other endgames and rook and pawn endgames, first of all, right? So I wouldn't generalize it that much. I think there's a famous saying, all rook and pawn endgames are drawn because they are drawish, right? But that's not always the case. But again, we're talking about practical concepts, so make sure you focus on that. Okay, rook d3. I gotta do something. My opponent simply plays rook here. I was actually slightly worried about rook here. Probably also a draw. So basically, the concept is the following. White just wants to eliminate all 4 pawns, a3, b4, and b7, a6. And this is a theoretical draw. 4 against 3. You guys know how to hold it. Of course, black can try an attempt, but especially with these double pawns, it's a pretty easy one. So probably it's a draw. He did this, which is also fine. I took, he took. Now, I don't want to simplify too early with a5. That's the key. Again, practical winning chances. If you simplify and just get a normal sort of 4 against 3, you're going to be very difficult to win. So I want to keep a5 as an option for later, maybe b6, a5. And this is an important concept. So pay attention, guys, to not simplify too early. Of course, I activate my king h7. Well, he gets back to the 7th rank, king g6, g3, f5. So my idea is king f6, king g2, king f6. And now, sometimes having a plan, right? He actually had a plan here. Could really derail your defensive stance. So his plan was to run with the king toward the center of the board. And then he's happy, right? The king is doing great. But turns out that on e3, the king is not well placed, as you'll see later. He should have just done absolutely nothing here and just kept an eye on being active and stopping my counterplay. So maybe like g4 and just kind of keeping me in check, keeping the pawns like this so I can't easily make progress. Still, I'm going to make progress. I'm going to try. And then maybe one day my king can run toward the other side of the board. Still some practical try, but objectively it's a draw. He plays here, here, and then, of course, he can just go back and wait. I think this is the better defense. He got ambitious, and the ambition is going to backfire. I played a5. It turns out that a5 is still a draw with best play, because I'll show you why. Because after pawn takes, rook takes, this is my big idea. Check here, f4. This position is a draw with only one move for white. So only moves. It's a draw. So after takes, white has a choice. Rook h7 and f3. Only one of these two moves is a draw. Why don't you guys try to guess which of these two moves is a draw and which black wins? 50-50. I like your odds. So one of them is a draw. Now, during the game, I honestly thought this is a good winning attempt for me, but in hindsight, maybe I should have been a little bit more accurate. So f3 is the draw. A little bit counterintuitive because it feels too ugly and weakening, as some of you may have said. Maybe I can activate, but it's not enough to win. This is actually losing for white because of this f3 intermezzo. Believe it or not, these kind of 50-50 positions, Magnus creates for his opponents all the time and they mess up. Yep. So f3 here is winning for black. The king is cut off. Then I just start to make progress, right? With king f5, e5, king e4, check, etc., etc. Now, the funny part, because this f3 move is a draw, I could have set up a more nasty trap. I could have played b6 here, right? Because he wants to get that pawn. And this is a win because the rook is much worse placed here than here. After taken, I can just go after the h pawn. Easy win. So this is the key idea that I could have tried during the game. But I kind of got lucky in a sense that my opponent had such an active king plan this entire time that he played after the move a5. He played a horrible blunder, king d4, and this just loses on the spot. Can you guys spot and direct message me so that nobody else can see the winning move here? What is the winning line? Okay, good job, Gordon. Yep, good tactical eyes. Most of you are getting it. Good job. Okay, let's give maybe another minute or two. Yep, good job. So this is a losing idea. So he worked so hard to get the king to the middle of the board, but just as the king came to d4, he realized, oopsies, if he goes here, it's game over. Well, so one move blunder, I didn't have to show any technique. And after this, it's just game over. I played b3, check. I can just speed through this process. 2 extra pawns, easy win. You can just do whatever you want pretty much. And then here, of course, no rook f6 mate in 1 blunder. Okay, and he resigned because f pawn is just gonna queen. So you see practical little problems here and there. He wasn't that low on time. No, I think he just played a little too fast, I'm guessing. All right, now it's gonna go back a little bit more for your education than anything else. You already probably have heard of Rubinstein. famous dude, right? So domination theme going here, active king, active rook. But you have to be a little bit careful how to make progress for black. Okay? So black is not in a hurry. And here, let me show you a very simple winning plan. First, he plays g5, right? We've seen this concept, right? And fixing the opponent's pawns, making a little progress. Zugzwang idea, right? These guys are kind of stuck. Rook b3, tempting to take on d4, but don't. Don't enter complications. Simple chess, f6. If you take on d4, things get kind of crazy. He's getting too much play, right? So you don't want to even calculate that. So simple chess, f6. Well, back to passive defense, and now king c4, game over. Like he can't put, like these pawns are very rock solid. He can't do anything. d5, that's it. And now the rook gets around, check, rook here, resigns. So very simple idea, blast from the past by Rubinstein. Many people have seen this example, and these are the ideas that I want you to keep in mind. Okay, let's keep going. All right, this one, from an instructive blitz game, how to make progress for black. Okay, here black has 2 pawns up, but the problem is our king is kind of cut off, and these guys are a little bit stuck. Okay, so we do a little bit of a dance in this one. First we play, well, white's turn. White plays rook a7. Now we play check. An unusual move. You invite your opponent king to move forward. Okay, then we play king g6. Obviously rook a6 is coming. f6 and rook back. It seems as though black accomplished nothing with this plan. You help your opponent out. But what was the hidden idea that black had all along? All right, let's give people maybe another minute or so. How is black making progress? Yep, you got it, guys. Most of you. Check. We do a little bit of a reversal to force the king back. And now the winning attempt is f4 exclam. And of course, after they take, this is game over. So this is the win. Okay. Again, kind of like a cute little idea, a little counterintuitive. First you check to get the king forward, and then you play king g6, f6, and then check again, and f4. All right, so now that you're all warmed up, let me give you something else. All right, so now Nepomniachtchi, let me actually flip the board, against Magnus. Okay, guys? So it's black's turn. Magnus is going to put the rook, of course, behind the pawn. Now it's a practical endgame. We have an outside a pawn. Can white try to win this? I think this is from one of their, I think chess.com tournaments recently. This is very recent. Yeah, this is like the tournament just before the World Rapid and Blitz. Yeah, this is a championship chess tour. No, this is not Title Tuesday. This is like more serious than Title Tuesday. Yeah. All right. So for a while, Nepomniachtchi is gonna make pretty good progress here with white. Now, both of the players know that probably black should hold with best play, but in practice, it's a different story, right? Because white can create some winning chances. So here, for a while, Nepomniachtchi is playing quite well. He decided correctly to play rook to c8 check and rook a8. Now, some of you in the chat mentioned the idea of put the rook on the side. And my question to everyone is, well, how does white make progress? The point is, it's going to be very hard for your king to get to the pawn without getting these guys lost in the process, or one of them. So your pawn on a3 is kind of too far, and it will require some pretty difficult journey for the king to get to b3 or b4. So basically, yeah, black is going to play g5. And so basically, the first stage of the plan is activate the rook on a8 and push the a pawn. That's what Nepomniachtchi does. Good job by white here, playing rook c8 check, rook a8. Black in turn just has to wait, so Magnus just plays g5. Generally speaking, g5 is a good move. Now, in these types of positions, you get the pawn to a6, and then you start thinking. Why do you get the pawn to a6, and then you start thinking? Who can explain to me that thought process? Again, it's a very practical concept in chess in these positions. Yeah, why don't you want the pawn on a7 right away? Which plan do you deny yourself of? Exactly. Yeah, sometimes you have to be careful. If you put the pawn on a7, you deny yourself one important plan, such as bringing the king on a7, playing this little umbrella idea, and then pushing the pawn. So the first stage, just keep pushing. Keeps pushing, keeps pushing, keeps pushing. Okay? Now the tough part. Now we have to actually think. What is our plan as white? So up to here, I think most top players will play on autopilot, but this is where they really have to make a serious decision. So, right, we have two sort of general plans. Try to get the king there, or forget about that plan, get the pawn to a7, and then do some other plan. And I think, once again, Nepomniachtchi makes the right decision, guys. So he made the right decision yet again with white. So far, he is perfect with the correct decisions to try to squeeze as much as he can to make it into victory, even though objectively, situation is still equal, but with perfect play, this, nobody's perfect. Even Magnus may not defend this perfectly. So what's the plan? A7 or try to get the king to a7? Anybody in the chat? You're still awake? Let's see what people are saying. All right, so we have some people say bring the king. Some people say a7. We have about 50-50 split so far. So clearly it's not obvious. So the correct answer is a7. Forget about getting the king to a7 because it's impossible. It's impossible without losing the pawns. So, for example, king f3, here, here, here. Sooner or later, you got to make a call and just give up. Now, don't be too greedy, guys. Like, already, rook a2, I think, would be better. But if you play rook f3 and take, this is where you can run into trouble. This is being too greedy. And white's king is way too close to the black's pawns. You don't want to do this. For example, here, take, here, 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 here. Oops. Not so good. You may be losing. Now, it is still a draw, but don't be greedy by black. Don't try to take the h3 pawn yet. Make the king do the hard work. Make the king get to a7, right? Once the king is getting there, only then go after the pawn. Why? You want to get this king as far as possible from your passed pawns, right? Then we take. It's impossible for Nepomniachtchi to calculate all of this. He just had to go by gut feeling, honestly, because there was no time left. And when you create this little umbrella, it's pretty obvious black has many different plans. This is good enough. It's white who has to be careful. All of these pawns are going to rush quickly, and white's king is really far away. Okay? So white should not go for this plan. Let me go all the way back. So that's why abandoning this plan makes sense and playing for a7. Well, Magnus says, I will just hang around, do nothing. What are you going to do? H4, good move. Rook here. And now, Nepomniachtchi plays a bizarre move that I don't understand, King G2. And within a few moves, the game just becomes a draw. King here, F4, takes. Magnus plays this pretty well, and this is easy. E5 is maybe he blundered E5, I don't know. There is no way White can even make a slight progress. They just agree to a draw. Shocking turn of events. First, Nepomniachtchi played everything correctly to try to win, and then he just plays this move, King G2. I don't understand this move, guys. What is this King G2 move? Now, the correct winning attempt is, of course, fix the weakness, get the pawn to H5. This is very instructive moment. I hope everybody will play H5 in their own games. Even if you don't yet know how to win this position, doesn't matter, play H5 anyways. This pawn fixing is absolutely essential. Okay, Magnus would play H5 without thinking. That's for sure. But now the hard part begins. Okay, after King G7, what's next? How do we make progress? Objectively, it's still a draw, but in practice, we can really, really put Black under serious pressure. Okay, now, of course, we need to rush with our king and somewhere in the vicinity here and maybe try to get the pawns going, right? So let's try this plan. King F3 here. Now, the beauty of the pawn there, by the way, this pawn can never be taken, right? We just move the rook and queen. So he kind of has to wait. Eventually, our king is going to make progress. Black waits. Here comes our king. You may say, but where's the king going? Well, you'll see. On E7. You guys see that? Yes, so that's first stage of our plan. Now the question, Black says, so what? Ha ha ha. What are you going to do next? The king's on E7, then what? Are you happy? Well, the second stage is F4. It looks like winning. Nope, still a draw. But again, from a practical point of view, Magnus will have maybe like 50-50 chance of getting this right. I don't know. Under pressure, even a GM of that caliber, like an endgame genius, may not get this one right. So, okay, this is not an easy one. So first they got to trade. Okay. Black has only one move. Only one move to make a draw. Every other move except this move loses. Only one move, guys. Okay, two people got this one. The rest did not. So you see, it's not really 50-50 anymore, right? If only two people out of the whole group get this one move. This is a tough move. So Black has only one move that makes a draw, but it's not obvious. Like basically you have to realize that once White plays G5, it's over. And that move, of course, is F6. Now, how easy is this move when you have no time on the clock? I don't think it is easy. Because you've been pretty much defending by do nothing the entire game. And this move is not really do nothing. This is very serious change of your defensive plan, giving up that pawn. Most players will just move the rook. Rook A5 or pawn. But after G5, it's over. You're just going to lose the game. Position crumbles. So this is the only move to keep the draw alive. And let me show you, for example, how. Now, once again, you can just do nothing. The key, of course, idea is White can't make progress. Like, how is White going to make progress? White can't get this king out of G7 easily. And if you manage to trade everything off, like G5, HG, FG, FG. H6 check, you just play King H7. So you can't make progress. And after F5, you're not really making progress because after G5, HG, H6, there's always King H7. So this is a draw. Okay. But, okay. We had to go all the way to the beginning. Let's go again, destructive moment. These positions happen all the time in practice. Like, how many of you have had this A pawn with some kind of 3 versus 3 or 4 against 4? This is a very common position. A lot, yeah. And so knowing just this basic concept, getting the pawn to A7, right? And then getting this pawn to H5. Okay, this King G2 is just bizarre. I can't understand that move. And then Russian with the king, very easy. And then asking your opponent a question after F4. Yeah, first of all, they may not even play GF. They may not even do that, but that's their problem. They will probably take. This is a tough one. F6 is the only move. Okay, only move. If not F6, you're lost. Like F5, I think I can just play G5. Although maybe this also works and just pushing the F pawn, but this may be the easiest. Yeah. The correct. So go back to the very beginning to make sure people do understand this is a practical end game. Objectively, it's been a draw the whole time. This was never winning by white objectively, but practically, it's a different story. Okay, I hope that clarifies people's question. That's why the topic is practical Rook and pawn endgames, where we saw a bunch of drawish endgames with accurate play. Black would have drawn. But Nepo could have easily tried to play for a win. Easily. If he plays H5, Magnus under pressure with no time on the clock, I'm not even sure he'll find the move F6. Maybe he will. Maybe I'm underestimating him, but it's a 50-50, I think. All right, so I hope you guys now armed to the teeth with all of these practical Rook and Pawn endgames tips and ready to play and do well this year, okay? So thank you, guys. Bye-bye, everyone.